Hey there. Picture this, a guy named Jake Harper, that's me standing in front of a little house. It's not a fancy house, just a regular one with a small yard and a driveway. I'm a guy who likes things simple. I don't need big, loud stuff or crazy adventures. I just want a quiet life. That's all I ever wanted when I moved into this place called Oakwood Hills. It's a neighborhood with big, tall trees that stretch up to the sky, green grass everywhere, and houses all lined up nice and neat. Sounds perfect, right? Well, hold on, there's more to the story than you think. See, Oakwood Hills isn't just about trees and pretty lawns. It's got people. Lots of people. And some of them, they're super nosy. They peek over fences, stare out their windows, and whisper about everyone else. They're like detectives, but not the cool kind. More like the annoying kind who think they know everything. And then there's this group called the Homeowners Association, or HOA for short. They're the bosses of the neighborhood. They make rules. Tons of rules. Rules about how tall your grass can be, what color your house can be, even how many flowers you can plant. It's wild. When I moved in, I didn't think much about the HOA. I just wanted my little house to be my own. It's got a red door, white walls, and a tiny porch where I can sit with a lemonade on hot days. The driveway's small, just big enough for my old blue truck. I liked it right away. It felt like home. I unpacked my boxes, put my clothes in the closet, and set up my TV. Simple stuff. I'm not a guy who makes trouble. I don't throw loud parties or leave trash everywhere. I keep to myself. That's how I've always been, quiet Jake, minding my own business. But the HOA? Oh boy, they had other plans. They didn't see me as just Jake, the quiet guy. Nope. To them, I was someone they could boss around. They thought they owned me, like I was a kid who had to follow their every word. They didn't know something, though. I had a trick up my sleeve. A secret. A big one. And they'd never guess it in a million years. Isn't that exciting? Don't you want to know what it is? Well, hang on, I'll tell you more soon. I promise it's worth sticking around for. Let's rewind a bit. Moving day was sunny and warm. I pulled up in my truck, the back full of boxes. The neighborhood looked so peaceful. Birds were chirping, a breeze rustled the leaves, and the sun made everything glow. I carried my stuff inside, one box at a time. My table, my chairs, my favorite lamp, they all found a spot. I even hung a little picture of my dog, Max, on the wall. Max isn't with me anymore, but I like seeing his goofy face every day. It makes me smile. As I worked, I noticed something. Eyes. Yup, eyes watching me. Across the street, a lady with curly hair peeked out her window. Down the road, a man with glasses stood by his mailbox, staring hard. Even a kid on a bike slowed down to look at me. I waved. They didn't wave back. Weird, right? But I shrugged it off. New guy in town, people get curious. No big deal. I kept unpacking, humming a little song to myself. I was happy. This was my fresh start. That first night, I sat on my porch with a sandwich. The stars were out, twinkling like tiny lights. Crickets chirped all around. It felt good. I thought, Jake, you've got this. A nice house, a quiet life, what could go wrong? Famous last words, huh? Because the very next day, things started to get interesting. Morning came, and I decided to check out my yard. It's not huge, just a patch of grass with a tree in the corner. The driveway runs right next to it, straight from the street to my garage. I walked around, sipping my coffee, when I heard a voice. Hey. You there? I turned, and there she was, Karen. She's the HOA president, but I didn't know that yet. She had short blonde hair, a red shirt, and a frown that could scare a bear. She marched across the street, holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. Hi, I said, trying to be nice. I'm Jake. Just moved in. She didn't smile. I know who you are, she snapped. I'm Karen, head of the HOA. We've got rules here, and you'd better follow them. Her voice was sharp, like she was already mad at me. I blinked. What did I do? I hadn't even been here a full day. But Karen kept going. Your truck's too loud. And that tree, it needs trimming. We don't allow messy yards. She pointed at my tree like it had committed a crime. I looked at my truck. It's old, sure, but it's not loud. And the tree? It's fine. I scratched my head. Okay, I said. I'll check the rules. Karen glared at me, wrote something on her clipboard, and stomped off. I stood there, coffee in hand, thinking, what just happened? That was my first taste of the HOA. And trust me, it wouldn't be the last. So, here's the thing about Oakwood Hills. It's pretty on the outside, big trees, clean streets, cute houses. But underneath? It's like a game. A game where the HOA makes the rules, and everyone else has to play along. If you don't, they get mad. Real mad. I learned that fast. Karen wasn't the only one watching me. Other neighbors started popping up too. There was Bob, Karen's husband, a big guy with a loud laugh who liked to park his truck wherever he wanted. There was Linda, an old lady who watered her flowers every day and stared at me over the fence. And then there was Tim, a guy with a fancy car who always looked grumpy. They all had one thing in common, the HOA. It's like they were a team, and I was the new kid they didn't trust. Every time I stepped outside, someone was there. Watching. Judging. Whispering. I'd wave, say hello, try to be friendly. Most of them just nodded or ignored me. It was strange, but I didn't let it bug me too much. I figured they'd get used to me eventually. I mean, how much trouble could one quiet guy cause? Turns out, a lot more than I thought. Days went by, and I settled in. I mowed my grass, swept my porch, kept everything neat. Simple stuff. I wasn't trying to break rules or make anyone mad. I just wanted to live my life. But the HOA? They had their eyes on me. Always. I'd see Karen driving by in her shiny white car, slowing down to peek at my house. Bob would walk past with his dog, glancing my way. Even Linda's flowers seemed to lean toward me, like they were spying too. Okay, maybe not the flowers, but you get the idea. One day, I decided to fix up my driveway. It's nothing special, just a strip of concrete. But it had some cracks, and I thought, why not make it look nice? So I grabbed some tools and got to work. I patched the cracks, swept the dirt, and even painted a little line to mark my parking spot. It felt good. I stood back, hands on my hips, proud of my work. That's when I got an idea. A gate. Yup, a gate for my driveway. Nothing big, just a simple one to keep things private. I liked the thought of it. My house, my rules, right? I didn't know it then, but that gate idea? It was the spark that'd light a fire. A big, wildfire that'd bring cops, dogs, and a whole lot of trouble to my door. The HOA didn't like people doing their own thing. Especially not me. They thought they could tell me what to do, push me around, make me follow their game. But here's where it gets good: they didn't know who I really was. They saw Jake Harper, the quiet guy with the old truck. They didn't see the secret I was hiding. A secret that'd turn their world upside down. Think about it. What if you moved somewhere new, and everyone tried to boss you around? Would you just go along with it? Or would you fight back? Me, I'm not the kind of guy who likes being told what to do. Not when it's my house, my life. The HOA thought they had me figured out. They thought I'd bow down, say yes ma'am to Karen, and let them run the show. Oh, how wrong they were. But I didn't show it yet. I kept quiet, watched, waited. That's how you win a game like this: you don't show your cards too soon. So, where are you watching from today? Are you in a big city with tall buildings? Or maybe a small town with fields and cows? Wherever you are, I bet you've met someone like Karen before. Someone who thinks they're in charge of everything. Tell me about it in the comments, I'd love to hear. And here's a question for you: could you handle a neighborhood like Oakwood Hills? With all the rules and nosy people? Let me know what you think. This is just the start, though. My little house, my driveway, my gate, it's all about to get crazy. The HOA didn't know it, but they'd picked a fight with the wrong guy. Stick around, because what happens next? It's wild. Cops show up. Dogs bark. And my secret? It comes out when they least expect it. You won't believe how it all ends. Okay, here's where the trouble started. It all began when I decided to put up a gate on my driveway. It's just a little gate, nothing fancy. I made it out of wood and painted it blue to match my truck. I thought it looked nice. It's my house, my land, right? Pretty simple. I figured nobody would care. I mean, it's just a gate. But oh boy, was I wrong. The HOA, the Homeowners Association, didn't like that one bit. Not even a little. They acted like I'd done something terrible, like I'd broken some big, important rule. The first person to show up was Karen. She's the boss of the HOA, the president. She's a lady with short blonde hair and a loud voice. She's always walking around the neighborhood like she owns everything. That day, she came straight to my house. She marched across the street, her shoes clicking loud on the pavement. She had a clipboard in her hand, holding it tight like it was super important. Her nose was high in the air, and her eyes were squinting at me. She didn't look happy. Not one bit. "Jake," she said, her voice sharp like a teacher yelling at a kid. "That gate's against the rules. You can't have it. Take it down, or else." She pointed at my gate like it was a monster. I stood there by my driveway, holding a hammer from when I'd been fixing it. I didn't get mad. I just smiled at her. "It's my property," I said, nice and calm. "I can put a gate up if I want." That's all I said. Simple, right? But Karen didn't like that answer. Not at all. Her face turned red. She huffed, like a dragon blowing smoke. "We'll see about that," she muttered. Then she stormed off, stomping back to her house. I heard her say something under her breath, something about teaching me a lesson. I didn't know what she meant, but it didn't sound good. I watched her go, her clipboard swinging by her side. I shrugged and went back to hammering my gate. I wasn't scared. Not yet. But I should have known Karen wasn't done with me. The next day, it got worse. I went to check my mailbox. It's this little metal box at the end of my driveway, painted green. I opened it up, expecting maybe a bill or a coupon. Nope. There was a letter. A white envelope with big, bold letters on it, Oakwood Hills HOA. I opened it right there, standing by the road. Inside was a note, typed all neat and official. It said, "Jake Harper, you must remove the gate from your driveway. It breaks Rule 47 of the HOA handbook. Take it down now, or you'll be in trouble." Trouble? What kind of trouble? I laughed a little. It was just a gate. I took the letter inside and tossed it in the trash. I wasn't taking my gate down. It's my house. I bought it with my own money. I worked hard for it. Why should I let some silly rule tell me what to do? So I left the gate right where it was. Big mistake, I guess, because the letters kept coming. Every single day, a new one showed up in my mailbox. "Remove the gate," one said. "You're ruining the neighborhood," said another. Ruining the neighborhood? With a gate? That didn't even make sense. One letter had a big red stamp on it that said urgent. It told me I had 3 days to take the gate down, or I'd get a fine. A fine means they'd make me pay money like a punishment. I shook my head and threw that letter away too. I wasn't paying anything. The gate stayed up, nice and blue, sitting there in my driveway. Every time I walked by it, I smiled. I liked it. It made my house feel like mine. But to Karen and the HOA, that gate was like a big, giant problem. A few days later, Karen came back. This time, she wasn't alone. She brought Bob with her. Bob's her husband. He's a tall guy with a big belly and a loud voice. He likes to wear hats with sports teams on them. That day, he had on a red cap and a grumpy look. They both stood in my yard, staring at my gate. Karen pointed at it again. "Jake," she said, "this gate has to go. We warned you. Now you've got fines piling up." Bob nodded beside her, crossing his arms like he was some tough guy. "Fines?" I asked. "What fines?" Karen smirked. "Check your mail," she said. "You owe us $50 already. And it's going up every day you keep that thing up." $50. For a gate. I couldn't believe it. I stayed calm, though. "It's my land," I said again. "I'm not taking it down." Bob laughed, but it wasn't a nice laugh. It was mean. "You'll learn, kid," he said. "Nobody messes with the HOA." Then they turned and walked away, whispering to each other. I went back to my mailbox after they left. Sure enough, there was another letter. This one said I owed $50. I stared at the paper. $50? That's a lot of money. I could buy food with that, or gas for my truck. But pay the HOA? No way. I crumpled the letter up and threw it in the trash with the others. They weren't getting a penny from me. Not for my own gate. The days kept going, and the letters kept coming. One said I owed $100 now. Then another said 200. They just kept adding more and more. Every morning, I'd open my mailbox, and there'd be a new one waiting. Take down the gate. Pay the fines. You're breaking the rules. Over and over. I stopped reading them after a while. I'd just pull them out, rip them up, and toss them away. My trash can was getting full of HOA letters. It was kind of funny, but also kind of annoying. Karen didn't stop there, though. She started showing up more. Sometimes she'd drive by in her white car, slowing down to glare at my gate. Other times, she'd walk over with that clipboard, writing stuff down. One day, she knocked on my door. Bang, bang, bang. I opened it, and there she was, looking madder than ever. "Jake," she said, "this is your last warning. Take that gate down, or we're calling the cops." The cops? Really? For a gate? I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just said, "It's my property, Karen." She shook her head and left. Bob started coming around too. He'd walk his dog, a big, shaggy thing with a loud bark, right by my house. He'd stop and stare at my gate, then mutter stuff I couldn't hear. One time, he yelled over the fence, "You're gonna regret this, Jake." Regret it? I didn't get it. It's just a gate. Why were they so mad? But they were. Super mad. And they weren't giving up. The neighbors got in on it too. Linda, the old lady with the flowers, started giving me dirty looks. She'd water her plants and peek over at my gate, frowning like I'd hurt her feelings. Tim, the guy with the fancy car, drove by one day and honked his horn real loud when he saw it. Even the kid on the bike, little Joey, rode past and shouted, "My mom says your gate's ugly." Ugly. I thought it looked great. But in Oakwood Hills, that gate was making me the bad guy. Karen and her crew thought I was some pushover. You know, someone they could scare into doing what they wanted. They figured I'd get tired of the letters and the fines and the yelling. They thought I'd take the gate down just to make them happy. Ha! They didn't know me at all. I'm not the kind of guy who gives up easy. I kept that gate up, day after day, no matter what they did. They had no idea what was coming. None at all. See, every time they sent a letter or banged on my door, I stayed calm. I didn't yell back. I didn't get mad. I just smiled and went about my day. But inside, I was watching. Waiting. I knew something they didn't. Something big. They thought they were winning this fight, but they were so wrong. The gate wasn't just a gate to me. It was a test. And I wasn't going to fail it. The tension kept building. Every day, it got a little worse. More letters. More fines. More glares from Karen and Bob. One afternoon, I saw them talking to a guy in a uniform. He had a badge on his shirt, some kind of HOA helper, I guess. They pointed at my house, then at the gate. The guy nodded and wrote something down. I watched from my window, sipping my lemonade. What were they planning? I didn't know yet, but I could feel it, something big was on the way. That night, I sat on my porch, looking at my gate. The moon was out, shining on the blue paint. It looked peaceful. Quiet. But I knew the storm was coming. Karen had said cops. Bob had said regret. The letters kept piling up. They weren't stopping. They wanted me to give in, to be scared. But I wasn't scared. Not even a little. Because I had something up my sleeve, something they'd never see coming. And when it hit, oh, they'd be sorry they ever messed with me and my gate. Okay, so things were heating up now. Days went by after I put up my gate, and the HOA, the people who make the neighborhood rules, got nastier. Really nasty. At first, it was just letters in my mailbox telling me to take my gate down. But then they started fining me. A fine is when they make you pay money because they're mad at you. The first fine was $50. 50 whole dollars. That's a lot, like enough to buy a big pizza or a new toy. I looked at the letter and shook my head. No way was I paying that. So I didn't. Not one dime. A few days later, another letter came. This one said I owed $100 now. 100? That's double the first one. I stared at it, my eyes big. Were they serious? All because of my little blue gate? I crumpled the paper up and threw it in the trash, just like the others. I wasn't giving them my money. It's my gate, my house, my driveway. They couldn't scare me that easy. But they didn't stop there. Oh no. The next letter said $500. 500. That's so much money, like enough to buy a bike or a whole bunch of video games. I laughed when I saw it. This was getting silly. I tossed that letter too. The fines kept coming, but I kept ignoring them. I'd go out to my mailbox every morning, expecting something normal like a postcard. Nope. Just more HOA letters, all saying the same thing: pay us. Take the gate down. I'd rip them up and throw them away. My trash can was full of them now, little bits of paper all scrunched up. It was almost funny, but it was also getting annoying. The HOA thought they could boss me around. They thought I'd get tired and give up. But I'm Jake Harper, and I don't give up that fast. Then Karen started showing up again. You remember Karen, right? She's the HOA president with the clipboard and the mad face. She'd been quiet for a bit after that first visit, but now she was back, and she brought her husband, Bob. Bob's a big guy with a loud voice and a red hat. He's not nice like Karen isn't nice. They'd come to my house together, stomping up my walkway like they owned it. Bang, bang, bang. They'd hit my door so hard I'd jump a little. I'd open it, and there they'd be, standing on my porch, looking all grumpy. Jake. Bob yelled one day, his voice booming. You're breaking the law. Take that gate down right now. His face was red, and he pointed at my gate like it was a bad dog. Karen stood next to him, nodding, her clipboard tight in her hands. We fined you, Jake, she said. You owe us $500. Pay up, or you're in big trouble. Big trouble? I didn't say anything. I just shrugged my shoulders, like it was no big deal. Then I closed the curtain, swish, right in their faces. I didn't even open the door all the way that time. They could yell all they wanted. I wasn't scared. They kept coming back, though. Almost every day now. Sometimes it was just Karen, sometimes Bob, sometimes both. They'd knock loud or ring my bell, ding dong, over and over. Jake, open up, they'd shout. You can't ignore us. But I did. I'd peek out my window, see them standing there, and just wait. They'd huff and puff and finally leave. One time, Bob kicked my porch step thud, before he walked off. I heard him say, this guy's gonna pay. Pay. Ha. They weren't getting anything from me. The neighbors started acting funny too. Linda, the old lady with the flowers, would shake her head at me when I waved. Tim, the guy with the fancy car, drove by slow and stared at my gate like it was a monster. Even little Joey, the kid on the bike, rode up one day and said, my dad says you're a troublemaker. A troublemaker? Me. I just wanted my gate. But to them, I was the bad guy. The whole neighborhood was turning against me, all because of the HOA and their silly rules. But here's the thing, they didn't know I'd been watching them too. Yup, I wasn't just sitting there doing nothing. Every time Karen and Bob came over, every time they yelled or sent a letter, I was paying attention. I got smart. I started taking notes. I had a little notebook, small, with a blue cover, and I'd write stuff down. Like, Monday, Karen came at 3 o'clock. Said I owe $500. Or, Tuesday, Bob banged on door at 6 o'clock. Yelled about the law. I wrote it all down, neat and careful. Why? Because I had a plan. A big one. See, they weren't perfect either. Karen and Bob and the HOA, they broke rules too. Oh yeah. I saw it with my own eyes. Like one day, Bob parked his big truck on the grass by their house. Not on the driveway, on the grass. That's against the HOA rules. It says so right in their little book, no parking on the grass. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture. Click. There it was, Bob's truck squashing the green lawn. Proof. I smiled and put my phone away. They didn't know I saw that, but I did. Another time, Karen put up a big sign in her yard. It said, HOA meeting Friday, in bright red letters. But guess what? The rules say no signs bigger than a little square. Her sign was huge, way too big. I took a picture of that too. Click. More proof. Little by little, I was collecting stuff. Every time they broke a rule, I wrote it down or took a picture. My notebook was getting full, and my phone had a bunch of photos now. They thought they could boss me around, but I was watching them right back. Days turned into weeks, and the HOA kept getting meaner. The fines got bigger, $600, then $700. One letter even said $1,000. $1,000. That's crazy, like enough to buy a TV or a whole pile of candy. I didn't pay any of it. Not a penny. Karen and Bob kept showing up, banging on my door, yelling loud. "Jake, you're done for," Bob shouted one day. "We're gonna win this." Karen added, "You'll be sorry." Sorry? I didn't feel sorry. I felt fine. I'd shrug, close my curtains, and go back to my day. The neighbors got louder too. Linda started telling people I was ruining everything. Tim honked his horn every time he drove by. Joey and his friends threw a ball over my fence one day just to be mean, I think. It rolled by my gate, and they laughed. I picked it up and tossed it back, nice and calm. I wasn't mad. I wasn't worried. Why? Because I had my notebook and my pictures. I was building something big, step by step. They didn't see it coming. One rainy afternoon, I sat by my window with a cup of hot chocolate. I looked out at my gate, all wet and shiny in the rain. Karen drove by in her car, slow as ever, staring at it. She didn't wave. She never did. I took a sip of my drink and opened my notebook. I wrote, Wednesday, Karen drove by at 2 o'clock. Looked mad. Then I flipped through my pictures: Bob's truck, Karen's sign, a pile of letters they'd sent. I had so much now. Every time they tried to scare me, I got stronger. They thought they were winning this fight, but they weren't. Not even close. I kept waiting, though. I didn't show them my plan yet. I didn't tell them about my notes or my pictures. I stayed quiet, like always. That's how you do it, you wait for the perfect moment. They thought I was just some guy they could push around. They thought I'd give up, take my gate down, pay their fines. Nope. I was Jake Harper, and I had something up my sleeve. Something they'd never guess. Every bang on my door, every nasty letter, every mean look, it was all part of it. They were digging a hole, and I was letting them. The tension was growing. I could feel it. The air felt heavy, like before a big storm. Karen and Bob were madder every day. The fines were piling up higher and higher. The neighbors whispered about me. My gate stood there, blue and strong, while they tried to tear me down. But I wasn't falling. I was watching. Waiting. Building. Little by little, I was getting ready. Ready for what? Oh, you'll see. It's coming soon, and it's gonna be big. They had no idea what I was up to, but they'd find out. Just wait. Okay, here we go. This is the part where everything went wild. It was a sunny afternoon, the kind of day where the sky's all blue and the birds are singing. I was outside, fixing my gate. Yup, that little blue gate on my driveway, the one the HOA hated so much. It had a loose board, so I grabbed my hammer and some nails. Bang, 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 I was tapping away, making it nice and strong again. The sun felt warm on my back, and I was humming a little song. Everything seemed calm. Peaceful. But that didn't last long. Oh no, not at all. All of a sudden, I heard this loud noise like tires screeching on the road. Screech. I looked up, and my eyes got big. 2 police cars zoomed right into my yard. They didn't slow down until they were super close, their wheels crunching the grass. The red and blue lights on top were flashing, blink, 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 super bright. My heart started beating fast, like a drum in my chest. Boom, boom, boom. What was going on? I stood there, hammer in my hand, staring as the car doors flew open. Out jumped 4 cops. 4. They had dark uniforms and shiny badges, and they looked serious. Really serious. But that wasn't all. One of them was holding a leash, and on the other end? A huge dog. A canine dog, the kind they use to sniff stuff out. It was big and furry, with sharp teeth and a loud bark, woof, woof, woof. The dog pulled on the leash, its paws digging into my yard. I froze for a second. Cops? A dog? In my yard? This was crazy. Then I saw her, Karen. She was standing behind the police cars, smirking like she'd just won a big prize. You know Karen, the HOA president with the clipboard and the mad face. Her arms were crossed, and her eyes were locked on me. She looked so happy, like this was the best day ever. Bob was there too, her husband, grinning next to her. They were both watching, waiting for something big to happen. My heart was still racing, but I didn't move. I just stood by my gate, hammer in one hand, nails in the other. One of the cops stepped forward. He was tall, with a loud voice. "Step away from the gate, sir," he shouted. His hand was on his belt, like he was ready for trouble. The dog barked again, woof, woof, and I took a tiny step back. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to see what they'd do next. The cop kept talking. "We got a call about you. Someone says you're causing problems. Big problems." Problems. Me. I didn't say anything yet. I just looked at him, then at Karen. That's when Karen jumped in. She pointed at me with her finger, all sharp and angry. "He's a troublemaker," she yelled. "Arrest him. He's been breaking rules and threatening the neighborhood." Threatening the neighborhood? With my gate? I almost laughed, but I didn't. Bob nodded next to her, his red hat bobbing up and down. "Yeah, arrest him," he said. "He's been nothing but trouble." The cops looked at me, then at Karen, then back at me. The dog kept barking, loud and wild. The tall cop spoke again. "Sir, the HOA says you've been causing a disturbance. They say you won't follow the rules, and it's making people mad. Real mad." He took a step closer, his boots loud on the ground, thump, thump. "We need to sort this out. Right now." My heart was still going fast, but I didn't panic. Nope. I stayed calm. Super calm. Because this was the moment I'd been waiting for. They didn't know it yet, but I was ready. Karen kept smirking, her eyes all shiny with excitement. "See," she said to the cops. "He's standing there with that gate. He won't take it down. He owes us $1,000 in fines." $1,000. She was making it sound like I was some big bad guy. Bob chimed in, "Yeah, he's been ignoring us for weeks. Arrest him already." The cops nodded, like they were thinking about it. The dog growled low, growling, and tugged on its leash. It felt like everything was closing in: cops, Karen, Bob, the barking dog. But I wasn't scared. Not even a little. That's when I smiled. Yup, I smiled nice and slow. I put my hammer down on the ground, real gentle. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. It's just a regular phone, black and small, but it had everything I needed. I held it up so everyone could see. The cops stopped moving. Karen's smirk got smaller, just a tiny bit. Bob tilted his head, confused. The dog even stopped barking for a second, like it was curious too. Everyone was watching me now. "Officers," I said, loud and clear, "I'm not just some guy." I took a deep breath and kept going. "I'm a lawyer. My name's Jake Harper, attorney at law. And I've got proof this HOA's been breaking laws left and right." Boom. There it was, the big secret I'd been hiding all along. I wasn't just Jake, the quiet guy with the gate. I was Jake, the lawyer. I'd been ready for this fight from the start, and they had no idea. The cops froze. Like, they didn't move at all. Their eyes got wide, and their mouths opened a little. The tall cop blinked at me. "A lawyer," he said, soft and slow. Karen's jaw dropped like it fell right to the ground. Her smirk was gone, poof, just like that. Bob's grin disappeared too. He looked at Karen, then at me, then back at Karen. "What?" he mumbled. Even the dog tilted its head, like it didn't get it either. The air felt still, like the whole world was waiting to see what happened next. I didn't stop. I held up my phone and started tapping the screen. "Look at this," I said to the cops. I pulled up a picture click, and showed it to them. It was Bob's truck, parked on the grass by their house. "See that?" I said. "HOA rules say no parking on the grass. But Bob does it all the time." The tall cop leaned in, squinting at the picture. Then I swiped to another one click. It was Karen's big sign, the one that said HOA meeting Friday, in red letters. "And this," I said. "Rules say no big signs. This one's way too big." Karen put it up herself. Karen started to talk. "That's not," she said, but I kept going. I pulled up more stuff, emails they'd sent me, all mean and bossy. "Here's what they wrote," I said. "Telling me to pay fines, saying I'm a troublemaker. But they can't do that. It's my land." Then I played a recording. Tap, tap. Karen's voice came out of my phone, loud and clear, "Take that gate down, Jake, or we're calling the cops." It was her, yelling at me from weeks ago. I'd recorded it secretly, and now everyone could hear. The cops looked at each other. The tall one scratched his head. "Hold on," he said. "You've got all this?" I nodded. "Yup. Pictures, emails, recordings. They've been breaking their own rules and harassing me." Harassing means bugging someone a lot, and that's what they'd been doing. I pointed at Karen and Bob. "They called you here, saying I'm threatening the neighborhood. But I'm not." "They are. And I can prove it." Karen's face turned red, super red, like a tomato. "He's lying," she shouted. "He's the problem. That gate's illegal." Bob jumped in too. "Yeah, he's just making stuff up." But the cops didn't listen to them. They looked at me, then at my phone. The tall cop took it from my hand, gentle, not mean, and started flipping through the pictures. He saw Bob's truck. Karen's sign. More proof, all right there. His eyebrows went up. "This is a lot," he said. I nodded again. "I'm a lawyer," I said. "I know the law. They can't fine me for my gate. It's my property. And they've been breaking rules too. I've got everything I need to show they're wrong." The cops looked surprised, but they didn't argue. Karen started yelling more. "No. He's tricking you. Arrest him." But her voice was shaky now. She didn't sound so sure anymore. Bob just stood there, quiet, his hat low over his eyes. The tall cop turned to me. "You're saying you're a lawyer? And you've got proof they're breaking laws?" I smiled again. "Yup. I've been ready for this. They thought I was just some guy they could scare. But I'm Jake Harper, attorney at law. And I don't scare easy." That was it, the big reveal. The secret I'd been holding all this time. They didn't know who they were messing with, but now they did. The cops stepped back, talking to each other in low voices. The dog sat down plop, and stopped growling. Karen and Bob looked scared now, not happy. Their big plan, calling the cops, bringing the dog, it was falling apart. I stood by my gate, my little blue gate, feeling strong. My heart wasn't racing anymore. I was calm, cool, ready. Because this was my moment. And it felt good. So, there I was, standing by my gate with my phone in my hand. The cops were still in my yard, 4 of them, plus that big, barking canine dog. The sun was shining, the police lights were flashing, and Karen and Bob were staring at me like I'd just pulled a magic trick. I had just told them my big secret: I'm Jake Harper, attorney at law, not just some quiet guy they could boss around. I showed the cops my proof, pictures, emails, recordings, all the stuff I'd been saving up. And now it was time for things to get fixed. The tall cop, the one who'd yelled at me to step away from the gate, turned to Karen. He didn't look happy anymore. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and serious, "we need to talk to you." He held my phone in his hand, still looking at the pictures I'd given him. Karen smirked. The one she'd had when the cops first showed up was gone. Poof. Like it never existed. Her face went pale, and she started to stutter. But he's the problem," she cried, pointing at me with a shaky finger. "He's the one breaking rules. Not us." Bob jumped in too. "Yeah," he said, his voice loud but not so sure anymore. "He's the troublemaker. Not us." He crossed his arms and tried to look tough, but his red hat was tilted funny, and he didn't seem so big now. The cops didn't say anything right away. They just looked at Karen, then at Bob, then at each other. The dog sat down on the grass plop, and wagged its tail, like it was bored. I stood there, calm and quiet, watching it all happen. The tall cop shook his head. "Ma'am," he said again, "we saw the proof. This guy," he nodded at me, "says you've been bugging him a lot. And he's got pictures showing you broke rules too." Karen's eyes got big. "No," she shouted. "That's not true. He's lying." But it was too late. Way too late. I stepped forward and handed over everything: my phone with the pictures, a little stack of emails I'd printed, even a tiny recorder with Karen's voice on it. "Here," I said to the cop. "This is all the stuff they did." The cop took it, looking serious. He flipped through the pictures again: Bob's truck on the grass, Karen's big sign, all of it. Then he read one of the emails out loud. "Jake Harper, you owe $500. Take the gate down now." He looked up at Karen. "You wrote this?" Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She just stood there, stuttering again. Well, yes," but the cop held up his hand. "Stop," he said. "We need to see more." I explained it all, nice and simple. "They've been harassing me," I said. "Harassing means bothering someone over and over, like bullies do. They sent me letters every day, fined me tons of money, and banged on my door. All because of my gate. But it's my land. They can't do that. And look," I pointed at the pictures. "They broke their own rules too." Bob parked on the grass. Karen put up a big sign. "That's not allowed." The cop nodded slow, like he was thinking hard. Then I added the big part. "And calling you guys? That was a fake story. I'm not threatening anyone. They just wanted to scare me." "That's wrong." The tall cop looked at the other cops, then back at me. "You're a lawyer, huh?" he asked. I smiled. "Yup. Jake Harper, attorney at law. I know what's legal and what's not." The cop scratched his head. "Okay," he said. "This changes things." Karen started talking fast. No, she said. "He's tricking you. That gate's against the rules. He owes us $1,000 now." $1,000. She was still trying to make me sound bad. Bob nodded next to her. "Yeah, he's been ignoring us. He's the bad guy." But the cops weren't listening to them anymore. The tall cop turned to Karen again. "Ma'am, you called us out here. You said he was dangerous. But this," he held up my phone, "says you've been the ones causing trouble." Karen's face went from red to white. But she started, but the cop cut her off. "We're taking this stuff to check it out," he said. He handed my phone to another cop, a shorter guy with glasses. "Look through it," he told him. The short cop nodded and started tapping the screen. He played the recording: Karen's voice yelling, "Take that gate down, or we're calling the cops." It echoed in my yard, loud and clear. Karen froze. Bob looked down at the ground. They didn't have anything to say now. The tall cop sighed. "Okay," he said. "Here's what's happening. We're not arresting him." He pointed at me. "He's got proof you've been breaking rules and bothering him. And calling us out here with a fake story? That's not okay. You wasted our time. Wasted their time. That's a big deal for cops. They don't like that." Karen shook her head. "No, you don't understand," she cried. But the cop just held up his hand again. "We're done here," he said. The cops started packing up. The short one gave me my phone back. "Good stuff," he said with a little smile. "You're smart to keep all this." I nodded. "Thanks," I said. The tall cop looked at Karen and Bob one last time. "You two need to stop this," he said. "No more bothering him. We're reporting this to the city. They'll decide what happens next." Then he turned to me. "You're good, Mr. Harper. Sorry we came out here like this. I smiled. It's okay, I said. I'm just glad you saw the truth. The cops got back in their cars. The big dog jumped into woof, and they turned off the flashing lights. Karen and Bob stood there, watching as the cars pulled away. Karen looked like she might cry. Bob kicked the ground with his shoe thud, and muttered something I couldn't hear. I waved at the cops as they left. Bye, I said. They waved back, and then they were gone. My yard was quiet again, just me and my gate. But that wasn't the end, not yet. By the end of the day, big things happened. First, the fines, the money they said I owed. All gone. Cancelled. The city called me later and said, Mr. Harper, those fines weren't fair. You don't have to pay anything. I smiled so big when I heard that. $1,000 stayed in my pocket. No more letters, no more yelling about money. It was over. Then the city talked to the HOA. They looked at my proof, the pictures, the emails, the recordings, and they got mad. Real mad. They sent the HOA a warning. A warning's like a big stop it, from the people in charge. They said, you can't harass people like this. You broke rules too. Fix it, or you're in trouble. The HOA had to listen. They didn't have a choice. And Karen? Oh, Karen got the worst part. She had to step down as president. That means she couldn't be the boss of the HOA anymore. Someone else took her place, a nice lady named Sarah who doesn't yell or carry a clipboard. Karen didn't like it one bit. I saw her the next day, packing up her car with Bob. She glared at me, but she didn't say anything. She couldn't. She wasn't in charge now. Bob just shook his head and got in the car. They drove off, and I didn't see them much after that. The neighbors changed too. All those people who'd ignored me before? They started being nice. Linda, the old lady with the flowers, waved at me one morning. Hi, Jake, she said, all sweet. Tim, the guy with the fancy car, stopped honking and nodded when he drove by. Even little Joey, the kid on the bike, rode up and said, your gate's cool. Cool. I laughed and said, thanks, Joey. It was like the whole neighborhood flipped. They didn't hate me anymore. They saw I wasn't the bad guy. And my gate? It's still standing tall. That little blue gate on my driveway, it didn't go anywhere. I fixed it that day, and it's strong as ever. No one's dared to mess with it since. Not Karen, not Bob, not the HOA, nobody. It's mine, and it's staying. Every time I walk by it, I smile. It's not just a gate anymore. It's a win. A big, happy win. So that's how it ended. The cops saw the truth, the fines went away, the HOA got in trouble, and Karen lost her boss job. Justice was served like in a superhero story where the good guy beats the bad guys. I didn't have to fight with my fists or yell loud. I used my brain, my proof, and my lawyer smarts. And it worked. Everything turned out fair, just like it should. So, there I was, standing by my gate with my phone in my hand. The cops were still in my yard, 4 of them, plus that big, barking canine dog. The sun was shining, the police lights were flashing, and Karen and Bob were staring at me like I'd just pulled a magic trick. I had just told them my big secret: I'm Jake Harper, attorney at law, not just some quiet guy they could boss around. I showed the cops my proof, pictures, emails, recordings, all the stuff I'd been saving up. And now it was time for things to get fixed. The tall cop, the one who'd yelled at me to step away from the gate, turned to Karen. He didn't look happy anymore. Ma'am, he said, his voice low and serious, we need to talk to you. He held my phone in his hand, still looking at the pictures I'd given him. Karen smirked. The one she'd had when the cops first showed up was gone. Poof. Like it never existed. Her face went pale, and she started to stutter. But he's the problem, she cried, pointing at me with a shaky finger. He's the one breaking rules. Not us. Bob jumped in too. Yeah, he said, his voice loud but not so sure anymore. He's the troublemaker. Not us. He crossed his arms and tried to look tough, but his red hat was tilted funny, and he didn't seem so big now. The cops didn't say anything right away. They just looked at Karen, then at Bob, then at each other. The dog sat down on the grass plop, and wagged its tail, like it was bored. I stood there, calm and quiet, watching it all happen. The tall cop shook his head. "Ma'am," he said again, "we saw the proof. This guy," he nodded at me, "says you've been bugging him a lot. And he's got pictures showing you broke rules too." Karen's eyes got big. "No," she shouted. "That's not true. He's lying." But it was too late. Way too late. I stepped forward and handed over everything: my phone with the pictures, a little stack of emails I'd printed, even a tiny recorder with Karen's voice on it. "Here," I said to the cop. "This is all the stuff they did." The cop took it, looking serious. He flipped through the pictures again: Bob's truck on the grass, Karen's big sign, all of it. Then he read one of the emails out loud. "Jake Harper, you owe $500. Take the gate down now." He looked up at Karen. "You wrote this?" Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She just stood there, stuttering again. Well, yes," but the cop held up his hand. "Stop," he said. "We need to see more." I explained it all, nice and simple. "They've been harassing me," I said. "Harassing means bothering someone over and over, like bullies do. They sent me letters every day, fined me tons of money, and banged on my door. All because of my gate. But it's my land. They can't do that. And look," I pointed at the pictures. "They broke their own rules too. Bob parked on the grass. Karen put up a big sign. That's not allowed." The cop nodded slow, like he was thinking hard. Then I added the big part. "And calling you guys? That was a fake story. I'm not threatening anyone. They just wanted to scare me. That's wrong." The tall cop looked at the other cops, then back at me. "You're a lawyer, huh?" he asked. I smiled. "Yup. Jake Harper, attorney at law. I know what's legal and what's not." The cop scratched his head. "Okay," he said. "This changes things." Karen started talking fast. No, she said. "He's tricking you. That gate's against the rules. He owes us $1,000 now." $1,000. She was still trying to make me sound bad. Bob nodded next to her. "Yeah, he's been ignoring us. He's the bad guy." But the cops weren't listening to them anymore. The tall cop turned to Karen again. "Ma'am, you called us out here. You said he was dangerous. But this," he held up my phone, "says you've been the ones causing trouble." Karen's face went from red to white. But she started, but the cop cut her off. "We're taking this stuff to check it out," he said. He handed my phone to another cop, a shorter guy with glasses. "Look through it," he told him. The short cop nodded and started tapping the screen. He played the recording: Karen's voice yelling, "Take that gate down, or we're calling the cops." It echoed in my yard, loud and clear. Karen froze. Bob looked down at the ground. They didn't have anything to say now. The tall cop sighed. "Okay," he said. "Here's what's happening. We're not arresting him." He pointed at me. "He's got proof you've been breaking rules and bothering him. And calling us out here with a fake story? That's not okay. You wasted our time. Wasted their time. That's a big deal for cops. They don't like that." Karen shook her head. "No, you don't understand," she cried. But the cop just held up his hand again. "We're done here," he said. The cops started packing up. The short one gave me my phone back. "Good stuff," he said with a little smile. "You're smart to keep all this." I nodded. "Thanks," I said. The tall cop looked at Karen and Bob one last time. "You two need to stop this," he said. "No more bothering him. We're reporting this to the city. They'll decide what happens next." Then he turned to me. "You're good, Mr. Harper. Sorry we came out here like this." I smiled. "It's okay," I said. "I'm just glad you saw the truth." The cops got back in their cars. The big dog jumped into woof, and they turned off the flashing lights. Karen and Bob stood there, watching as the cars pulled away. Karen looked like she might cry. Bob kicked the ground with his shoe thud, and muttered something I couldn't hear. I waved at the cops as they left. "Bye," I said. They waved back, and then they were gone. My yard was quiet again, Just me and my gate. But that wasn't the end, not yet. By the end of the day, big things happened. First, the fines, the money they said I owed. All gone. Cancelled. The city called me later and said, "Mr. Harper, those fines weren't fair. You don't have to pay anything." I smiled so big when I heard that. $1,000 stayed in my pocket. No more letters, no more yelling about money. It was over. Then the city talked to the HOA. They looked at my proof, the pictures, the emails, the recordings, and they got mad. Real mad. They sent the HOA a warning. A warning's like a big stop it, from the people in charge. They said, "You can't harass people like this. You broke rules too. Fix it, or you're in trouble." The HOA had to listen. They didn't have a choice. And Karen? Oh, Karen got the worst part. She had to step down as president. That means she couldn't be the boss of the HOA anymore. Someone else took her place, a nice lady named Sarah who doesn't yell or carry a clipboard. Karen didn't like it one bit. I saw her the next day, packing up her car with Bob. She glared at me, but she didn't say anything. She couldn't. She wasn't in charge now. Bob just shook his head and got in the car. They drove off, and I didn't see them much after that. The neighbors changed too. All those people who'd ignored me before? They started being nice. Linda, the old lady with the flowers, waved at me one morning. "Hi, Jake," she said, all sweet. Tim, the guy with the fancy car, stopped honking and nodded when he drove by. Even little Joey, the kid on the bike, rode up and said, "Your gate's cool." Cool. I laughed and said, "Thanks, Joey." It was like the whole neighborhood flipped. They didn't hate me anymore. They saw I wasn't the bad guy. And my gate? It's still standing tall. That little blue gate on my driveway, it didn't go anywhere. I fixed it that day, and it's strong as ever. No one's dared to mess with it since. Not Karen, not Bob, not the HOA, nobody. It's mine, and it's staying. Every time I walk by it, I smile. It's not just a gate anymore. It's a win. A big, happy win. So that's how it ended. The cops saw the truth, the fines went away, the HOA got in trouble, and Karen lost her boss job. Justice was served like in a superhero story where the good guy beats the bad guys. I didn't have to fight with my fists or yell loud. I used my brain, my proof, and my lawyer smarts. And it worked. Everything turned out fair, just like it should. Alright, everyone, so, there you have it. That's my whole story. A guy, a gate, and a big surprise that flipped everything upside down. Pretty cool, right? I'm Jake Harper, just a regular guy who wanted a quiet life with my little blue gate. But the HOA, those bossy people with all their rules, they didn't like that. They came after me hard. Letters, fines, yelling, even cops and a barking dog. They thought they could push me around, make me take my gate down, scare me into doing what they wanted. But guess what? They were wrong. So wrong. See, this started with something small. Just me putting up a gate on my driveway. It's my house, my land, I thought it'd be no big deal. But Karen and Bob and the HOA turned it into a giant fight. They sent me letters every day, saying, "Take it down. Pay us money." They banged on my door, called me a troublemaker, told everyone I was ruining the neighborhood. They even called the cops, saying I was dangerous. Dangerous. Me. All because of a gate. Can you believe that? It's crazy when you think about it. But here's the fun part, I didn't give up. Nope, not even a little. They thought I was weak, just some quiet guy they could boss around. They didn't know I had a secret. I'm not just Jake Harper, I'm Jake Harper, attorney at law. I know about rules and laws, and I was ready. I took pictures, wrote notes, saved emails, everything I needed to fight back. When the cops came that sunny afternoon, I didn't run or cry. I showed them my proof, and bam. Everything changed. Karen's smirk went away, Bob got quiet, and the HOA got in trouble. My gate? It's still standing tall, and nobody messes with it now. So, what's the big idea here? Sometimes, the person you think is weak turns out to be the strongest one around. That's me in this story. Karen and Bob and the HOA, they saw me as small, like I didn't matter. They thought they could push me, Yell at me, scare me. But I wasn't small. I wasn't weak. I had power inside me, smarts and patience and a plan. They didn't see it coming, not one bit. And when I showed who I really was, oh boy, they were surprised. It flipped everything upside down, just like magic. Think about that for a second. Have you ever seen someone who looks quiet or shy, and you think, oh, they're not strong? Maybe at school, or with your friends, or even in your family. Sometimes people judge others fast. They look at the outside, how loud someone is, how big they seem, and decide who's tough and who's not. But that's not always right. The quiet kid in class. Maybe they're super smart. The small person on the team. Maybe they run the fastest. You never know what's hiding inside someone until they show it. That's what happened with me. The HOA judged me wrong. They saw a guy with an old truck and a little gate, and they thought, easy. We'll win. But I had something they didn't expect: my lawyer skills and my proof. I stayed calm, watched them, waited for the right time. And when that time came, I stood up tall. I didn't yell or fight with my hands. I used my brain. And that's stronger than anything. Stronger than Karen's clipboard, stronger than Bob's loud voice, stronger than all their fines and rules. Here's another thing: those who try to push you, they never see it coming. Bullies like Karen and Bob, they think they're the bosses. They think they can tell everyone what to do, make people feel small. They're loud, they're mean, they act big. But when someone stands up to them, when you show you're not scared, they don't know what to do. It's like a surprise party they didn't want. Karen thought she'd won when the cops showed up. She was smirking, so sure I'd lose. But then I pulled out my phone, showed my proof, and her whole plan fell apart. She never saw it coming. Not in a million years. That's a cool lesson, right? You don't have to be loud or big to be strong. You don't have to yell or cry or give up when someone's mean to you. You can be quiet, like me, and still win. You just need to believe in yourself, maybe make a plan, and wait for the right moment. It's like a game: sometimes you let the other team think they're ahead, but then you score the winning point. That's what I did. I let the HOA think they were winning, but I had my secret ready. And when I used it, game over for them. So, what do you think? Could you stand up to a bully like that? Maybe you've got a Karen or a Bob in your life, someone bossy who tries to push you around. Could be at school, like a kid who takes your lunch. Or at home, like a brother who won't share. Or even in your neighborhood, like my HOA. What would you do? Would you stay calm like me? Would you find a smart way to fight back? I bet you could. You've got strength inside you, even if it's quiet. Maybe you're good at drawing, or running, or helping friends, something special that makes you tough. Think about it. Let me tell you a little more about bullies, because they're tricky. Bullies like Karen, they act big because they want to feel important. They make rules, boss people, try to scare you. But deep down, they're not so strong. When I showed the cops my proof, Karen didn't know what to say. She stuttered, turned red, looked small. That's what happens when you stand up. Bullies shrink. They're only big until someone says, no, and that's what I did. I said no with my gait, my pictures, my lawyer smarts. You can say no too, in your own way. This story's about more than just me and my gait, you know. It's about being brave. Brave doesn't mean you're loud or scary. Brave means you keep going, even when things get hard. The HOA sent me letters every day, tons of them. They fined me $1,000, banged on my door, called the cops. It was a lot. But I didn't quit. I kept my gait up, kept my cool, kept my plan. That's brave. And you can be brave too, even if it's just saying, hey, that's mine, or stop being mean. Little brave steps make you strong. I want you to think about your own strength. What makes you special? Maybe you're good at math, or you tell funny jokes, or you're nice to everyone. That's power. Like how I used my lawyer stuff, you can use what you've got. If someone's pushing you, don't think you're weak. You're not. You've got something inside, something awesome. And when you use it, oh, watch out. The Karens of the world won't know what hit them. Let's picture this. Imagine you're me for a second. You've got a gate, something you love, and someone's trying to take it away. They're loud, they're mean, they've got friends helping them. What do? Do you give up? Or do you wait, watch, find a way to win? I bet you'd find a way. Maybe you'd tell a teacher, or draw a picture to show what's wrong, or get your friends to help. That's standing up. That's flipping it upside down, just like I did. And it feels so good when you do it. My gate's still here, you know. It's blue and tall, right on my driveway. Every time I see it, I remember the story. I remember how I didn't let the HOA win. How I stayed strong, quiet, smart. How I surprised them all. It's not just a gate now, it's a reminder. A reminder that I'm tougher than they thought. And you're tougher than people think too. Don't forget that, okay? You've got power, even if it's hiding right now. So, tell me, what do you think? Could you stand up to a bully like that? Have you ever had to? Maybe there's a story in your life where you were brave, even a little bit. I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments below, I read them all. And hey, if you like this story about me and my gate, stick around. I'll see you in the next one. There's always more to tell, and I bet it'll be just as fun. Bye for now, and stay strong, you've got this.